Amen. So, over the next couple of months, we're going to be really focused in on hope. We feel like the people of God are supposed to live counterculturally right now because everybody's in despair. And I think that one of the main things that people are in despair about is this idea that this year has been just like a total waste. Like all this stuff that we could have done with this year that's gone. And that if we get this really clear sense of how this year has been fruitful for our discipleship, that would be like really valuable for us. And so that's what we're focusing on tonight. And I didn't print the passage because it's so short, but I'm going to go ahead and read it to you guys. If you want to look at it, it's online, openhomechurch.org. But I think all of you have probably heard this passage like 20 times. So, do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust consume, and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasure in heaven, where neither moth nor rust consumes, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For wherever your treasure is, there your heart will be also. So that's the passage. If you want to take a few minutes to think about it, it's not going to take long to think about such a short passage, but if there's anything that's striking to you that you want to talk about before we get into this other stuff, you can. All right, I'm going to keep it snappy. Let's go. Any observations or thoughts?
I think Matthew is probably my favorite of the Gospels. It used to be John, but I mean, they're all good. I like them all for different reasons, but like, I feel like when I read Matthew, it's just nonstop, like, power words like this. It's just so basic, but it's so essential, you know?
Yeah, dude. I dig that. Anybody else? All right, I'm gonna keep it going. We're gonna keep it. Okay, go ahead.
It's just intense that what we treasure is where our heart ends up being. So like what we devote our time and attention to is like
is where your heart lands.
But yeah. Anyway, that's it.
Totally. Yeah. I love that part. More? Any more? Let's say it's got something.
Yeah, just like makes me feel better about not like building up a ton of wealth, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not gonna, what's it gonna gain?
Yeah.
You know? You're just gonna have more to worry about, and your stuff's gonna get stolen. It's gonna make you even more mad because you think like it's amazing. But yeah, just gonna keep that in perspective. It's just Christmas.
Yeah.
And all that. Like, how much do we really need? And,
Yeah.
yeah.
Totally. Yeah, this passage is way more about money than the way that I'm taking it tonight, especially when you look at the context all around it. But I wanted to use it a different way. So here's the way I want to use it because it means a lot of things. It's not just talking about money, but where I'm taking this is that this year doesn't need to be a waste. That there's significant discipleship opportunities within this year. But I want us to dig into a little bit more, like a little deeper into our like feelings about the things that have been wasted. So what are the things that feel like they just got ruined or wasted by this year?
I was a week out from directing my first large budget short film.
Oh! Josh was a week out from directing his first large budget. what was it? Short film.
Yeah.
Wow.
And didn't get to do that. I'm sorry I'm laughing. That is hard, dude.
It's funny.
I just yeah, that's probably gonna top whatever else someone else has to share. Keep going.
I'm kind of mad because we had this epic like family trip plan. People that raised me were gonna take like 20 of us to
Yeah.
this crazy African safari thing. It's like trip of a lifetime. We were gonna go to Dubai, to South Africa, to all like up the coast. Like I'm never gonna be able to do that with my kids unless
Yeah.
someone pays for me. They're like paying for everybody, but like it got canceled, obviously.
Yeah. Is it still gonna happen or is it over?
I mean, we had to get our tickets refunded. We still have like the safari paid for, but all the tickets got refunded.
Yeah.
But like they're in their 80s, so who knows if we're gonna be able to do it again? You know.
Yeah.
So yeah, that sucked.
Yeah. What else? Garrison was gonna go to Ireland.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that. I literally, my whole life, I've wanted to go to like the UK or Europe, and this year I was finally gonna do it, and we had to cancel that. Yeah.
Yeah. What else?
I had a much weirder experience with the pandemic where I felt like my world was already kind of falling apart, and then the entire world decided to fall apart at the same time. like that's what the first quarter of this year was like for me. It was like, oh cool, like I was already going through one of the difficulties for mostly anybody, and then on top of that, the entire world was just like, oh, I'm gonna have trauma too. And like, thanks. So that was. I felt like, yeah, nothing special got taken away from me. It just made the entire circumstance hard. So.
Yeah.
I've been trying to move out of Seattle for years, and every time I try to leave, something happens. And so this round of Kanae's not getting to leave Seattle is coronavirus. Woo!
Thank God. There is a silver lining. For me.
Yeah, we have a new baby, and my brother has a new baby, and we just have like we're missing out on some really cool like together family time. That's what's going on and
Yeah.
with us.
Yeah, it seems like it's really hard for kids, and like my sister had her baby in April and couldn't have anyone in the delivery room with her, and like my parents didn't feel comfortable even holding the baby for like 8 weeks afterwards because no one knew how contagious COVID was and whether babies got it and what happened when babies got it. So my sister was really bummed out about that.
Yeah. Anyone else want to share? Things that got wasted this year.
I feel like for me it wasn't anything big, but like I don't know, I feel like at the beginning of this year I had like all these New Year's resolutions that I was really excited about. And I was gonna like join an ultimate frisbee team, and I was gonna like do like volunteer tutoring, and I was gonna do like all these things, especially like socially oriented things. And then it all just kind of went downhill.
Yeah, I had just hit my goal weight and then have gained 8 pounds. Yeah.
Yeah, I did gain 20 pounds this year.
I can't see it on you, but I trust you in the scales.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I was gonna quit my job this year, but 2021. that'll
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah. And like those are just like mammoth awesome things, but there's been so many like just every day there's been a cost or a toll that things we can't do. And yeah, if you're like a secular person, and all you've got is 80 years to live, and you just lost one of those in your 20s or 30s, like a lot of our friends have, like, that's kind of a travesty, right? You're not getting that back. So what are the opportunities that we've had to invest in heaven?
I feel like for us, it's been our pace of life has slowed down so much.
Yeah.
And it was like something that we were really needing desperately and like praying for, but it felt like there were just so many factors. There were so many like competing things we could be doing, or expectations to I guess try to meet, that we were just like, we could get it going for a couple weeks, but then we'd end up moving really fast again. So I just feel like in general, like our cadence and just like the pace for which we're going about life, and therefore like our ability to like take note of spiritual things and things to be grateful for, and that's changed and been really helpful. And I'm obviously not grateful for COVID, but I am grateful that I've had a longer period of time where I've been able to go about that cadence, because I'm hoping that some of those patterns stick a little bit.
Yeah, man, I'm totally the same way, where we were spending like 5 nights away from, like 5 nights out of the week I would not be putting my kids to bed because I was out doing stuff with people, and I just hope I never go back to that. What else?
I feel like for me, this was like a really big year of transition. Like I moved to Seattle right before coronavirus hit. And I think it just, like, it's forced me in a lot of ways. Like actually working from home was worse for me in a lot of ways, because I actually ended up working like longer days, and I'm still trying to work through that. But I think it gave me like opportunities and like growth that I wouldn't normally have, where I kind of like forced myself to build community, which is naturally kind of hard for me anyways, because I'm introverted, so I actually could be like a little more assertive with that than I would normally be. So yeah, just like a lot of different opportunities for me in terms of like learning to be more assertive and outgoing, and then also kind of learning how to like find that balancing act with work, and kind of like setting up boundaries that I normally wouldn't do. So
Yeah. What else?
I feel like in some ways this year hasn't like slowed down for me a lot. Like for a few months I was an essential worker, and then like even so like now I'm working from home, but like I thankfully have had like tons of awesome online community. So like I'm always talking with people and stuff, but I think the heavenward kind of aspect of it is like one, like just seeing how God can provide connections through a time like this, and also just like personally for me this year, like going through some like crazy shit and still coming out the other end, like believing in God just as much, and just seeing that, you know, he's still there, and I think that's been really good.
Yeah.
For me, I had to work from home for about like 15 weeks, and that was an awful experience for me, but it allowed me to go home to my parents' house, which previously had felt like a really anxiety-producing place to be. But for some reason this year, not for some reason, but like God just gave me like a lot of peace when I was there this year, and I feel like it totally changed how I look at going home, and I'm excited to come home and like spend a good amount of time with my parents now that happened.
Yeah. That's good. Anybody else really want to share? I'm about to talk about a library for like 5 minutes.
Renee wants to know what the question was.
Oh, the question is, what are the opportunities for investing in heaven that you've had this year? Do you want to get in there, Kane?
No, I feel like I need to reflect. That's like a heavy question. Jeez.
Yeah. Don't worry, we're going to be reflecting on that more later. I'm going to talk about a library for a long time. Some of you guys are going to be wondering, like, does Caleb understand what church is and what you're supposed to do here? But we meet at church so frequently that we have time for fanciful digressions. And it's going to loop back a little bit, trust me. So, there's This American Life, and actually, I thought about playing the This American Life episode here. It would have taken like 30 minutes, and then I was like, we're a weird church, but we're not that weird. So it could have been worse. It's like 5 minutes instead of 30. But there's this library in Vancouver called the Browdigan Library. Did anybody hear about this? The Browdigan Library? Yeah, it's in Vancouver. What?
Or Washington?
The Washington one.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's in our state, and so it is a real life library now, but it was inspired by this guy Richard Browdigan. He wrote this short story about this mythical otherworldly library where people would come in who never were able to get published anywhere else, and they would come there to leave their books there. And no one ever checks out any of the books. Like, it's a place that you only go there to check in books. No one ever comes to read them. And yeah, there's just a space where you can come in when you put your book down. You can put it wherever you want because no one's ever going to check it out. It doesn't matter. Like, this space where people who had something on their minds that they really wanted to get off their chest and they could never get published anywhere. It's like a space for them to be on a shelf. And I thought this was a super cool idea. The way that Ira Glass puts it is, he's like, it's funny, it's heartbreaking, it's democratic, it's magical, all at the same time. It's kind of the utopian ideal of the public square, except completely silent, all written down on rows and rows of unread books. And the imaginary librarian in the book says that the purpose of the library is to gather pleasantly together the unwanted, the lyrical, and the haunted volumes of American writing. And so the way that the library became a real place is actually really eerie. And I definitely got chills like when I was listening to it. You should definitely listen to the episode. But there's this guy named Todd, and he reads the Browdigan book, and he's like, man, someone should make that library real, like, someday. Like, that's such a good idea. And that's just like percolating in his brain for years. And then he goes and he watches Field of Dreams. Do you guys know Field of Dreams? So it's this movie where this guy hears this voice that's like, if you build it, they will come. And so he builds this baseball diamond in the middle of nowhere, and then a bunch of ghosts come and play on it. A bunch of like dead like superhero baseball players come and play on it. So this guy Todd, he's in the movie theater. He hears, if you build it, they will come. And in that moment, he's like, I'm doing it. Like, the next day, like, he gets on top of it. He opens up, within like 6 months of watching that movie, the Browdigan Library is real. And people start coming, and they're dropping off their books. People who could never get published anywhere else are just coming and pumped about it. There's all these news stories going on, and it's a real place, right? Guess who walks into the Browdigan Library? The dude who wrote Field of Dreams. He walks into the Browdigan Library, and the guy Todd's like, oh, I made this library because of you and your book. And then the Field of Dreams guy goes, oh, you built it and I came. And then the Field of Dreams guy is like, guess what? I wrote Field of Dreams because I read Richard Browdigan's book about this library. And then it gets even crazier where like the guy who later ends up the Todd guy doesn't look like the librarian in the book, but the guy who ends up there later taking it over looks exactly like the guy that Browdigan talked about in the book, and his characteristics are all the same and stuff. And that guy had an interaction with Richard Brautigan where he said, "After I die, I will haunt you." Anyway, it's such an interesting story. That's not really the point, but yeah, listen to some of these titles. The books that are there sound awesome. This is a real place in Vancouver, Washington that we should go to someday. Maybe take a field trip, or maybe I'll just go with Deanna. Read some of these books. I think it's such a beautiful idea. So there's a book called "Enjoy the War, Peace Will Be Terrible." I'd Be Your Roadkill Baby. Sounds like a good book. Here's the description of a novel that's called "Did She Leave Me Any Money?" It's a philosophical comedy about men, money, motivation, winning strategies, architecture, nudism, trucking, corporate assassinations, heart attacks, sexual politics, hometown parades, spiritual warriors, and the dredging of Willapa Bay. You know you want to read that book. I gotta read that book. The librarian guy there that looks like the guy from the book, he says that one of his favorite authors there is this guy named Albert Heltzner, who has 19 books that are what he calls PhD level stoner thinking. So like one of the books, what this guy does is he goes and stares at babies who, like in real life, he goes and stares at babies who've just been born, and he learns their name, and then he goes back, and that day he writes down everything that he experienced that day. He journals about it all. Like, I saw the moon and it looked like this, and I ate this ice cream, blah blah blah. And then 10 years later, on that baby's 10-year birthday, he brings the thing that he wrote to him and he shares it with him, and he's like, "Does this mean anything to you?" The dude's pretty intense. But one of the books that the librarian was like, this really embodies what this library is here for, it's called Autobiography of a Nobody. Her name's Etherly Murray. And yeah, when she heard that they accept all the manuscripts that have been rejected from everywhere else, she was like, well, I'm a nobody, like maybe they'll be interested. And she talks in the notes, it's mostly about her like growing up in the Great Depression, I guess, but she talks in the notes about how she submitted it to 40 publishers, and they all said, this is great, you know, it's good writing and stuff, but we don't publish biographies about nobodies. I love that the world has made this little spot for the nobodies, and I love that this idea of a library for the unexpressed, because we've all got this desire to like say things and get across things that we never got to get across here, and we've all got this sense that it would be really nice if everyone got the attention that they didn't get here. All the people who got ignored, that they'd have like a space and a place for their ideas too. I love that, and I think that's that idea that like a space where everyone can be considered. I think it's part of what is attractive and part of what's actually good about like social media is. And I think that when we post, there's something in us that, yeah, like wants to be heard. And I think all of us have probably thought at some point, like, I think there's a book in me, like maybe I'll write that later down the road. At least I've thought that a lot of times. But I've heard a lot of people think that. But yeah, even deeper, there's this need that we have that's like, for my life to matter, it needs to touch someone else's life. We all have that. In this life, we are a bunch of nobodies, probably. Like, maybe Joshua will have a movie that takes off. Maybe Kanae will get a blue check mark by her name if she keeps making rad videos. But for most of us, that's not going to happen. And we're going to go through this life as nobodies. But in heaven, there will be time for every thought to get expressed, every person to get heard out, every book to get written and read. Heaven is better than the Brautigan Library because it's not just a place where the forgotten can rest. It's a place where nothing gets forgotten and nothing can be forgotten. Like the idea that something could be irrelevant will become irrelevant, and every person is going to be fully known and fully cherished. And we want that. We definitely want that. And yeah, back to the passage, like even deeper than that, than what's going on with the Browdigan thing, Jesus is saying that this place that he speaks about where moth and rust doesn't destroy, he's saying that if we act now in alignment with the way that heaven operates, like if we live now the way that heaven is, then that will not be wasted because it's not going to end. It's not going to be over, right? Like if you connect to God now in prayer, like that's not a waste. That's something that you're going to be doing for a very long time, for like a forever amount of time. And when we invest in our emotional health, when we invest in racial reconciliation, that kind of stuff, like that's the way heaven is, right? And so it's not a waste. Don't waste your time on things that are going away. There's a lot of stuff that feels like a waste this year. Those things are going away. But there's this enduring soul that is not going away, right? Okay. So, and Deanna talked about this for a second, but I want to talk about it more. What do you guys think that it means when he says that line, where your treasure is, your heart will be also? There's some cool observations to make on that little statement. Does anybody want to talk about what it means? Okay, I will. Did I clip anybody off? I'm gonna go. I just love Jesus doesn't say like store up your treasure in heaven because heaven treasure is better. Like he doesn't say heaven treasure is like worth more and shinier and more gold, better carrots or whatever. Like he says, because where you make your investment is where your heart's going to be. And so what Jesus is saying is like, you're interested in treasure, I'm interested in your heart. Like you're interested in the task at hand and the benefits and rewards that you could get from taking certain actions. I'm not really interested in the task at hand. I'm interested in who you're becoming. Like it's not about the task at hand or the thing that you're doing like in that moment. It's about what is going on with your enduring soul and who are you becoming over time. It's a discipleship vision. Like that's a vision of discipleship, right? And I think a lot of times I get caught up in the task at hand or the year at hand or the time at hand a lot. But what we really need to do is see who we're becoming over time. That's what it means to live as a disciple. Like even right now, I'm worried about like how's tonight gonna go. I'm judging how engaged people seem, and you know I'm invested in these meetings to an extent where I'm worried about them, and I wish I could stop it because this meeting doesn't matter. Like this meeting's not gonna matter a whole lot in the grand scheme of things. Like I have this small short focus, but that's not what matters. Like what matters is who I'm becoming, who you guys are becoming, and whether we're helping each other like forward in the beautiful beings that God wants us to be. So C.S. Lewis has a really good thing about this. He says, the load or weight or burden of my neighbor's glory should be laid on my back. To remember that the dullest and most uninteresting person you talk to may one day be a creature which, if you saw it now, you would be so strongly tempted to worship, or else a horror and a corruption such as you now meet, if at all, only in a nightmare. All day long, we are in some degree helping each other to one or other of these destinations. It is in the light of these overwhelming possibilities, it is with the awe and circumspection proper to them, that we should conduct all our dealings with one another, all friendships, all loves, all play, all politics. There are no ordinary people. You have never talked to a mere mortal. Nations, cultures, arts, civilization, these are mortal, and their life is to ours as the life of a gnat. But it is immortals with whom we joke, work with, marry, snub, and exploit. immortal horrors, or everlasting splendors. Next to the blessed sacrament itself, your neighbor is the holiest object presented to your senses. Woo! That's good. Yeah, we need a vision of who we're becoming, and we sure can't trust secularism or our culture to give it to us. And I was looking around online for like advice that like people are getting in terms of like what to do with quarantine. And so I looked at The Stranger. Like, what is The Stranger? If you guys know what The Stranger is, it's like this hipster Seattle thing about like what to do with your weekends. And they were like, because I was like, what's that going to be like now that you can't do anything? So, escape your woes with a video game orgy. It wasn't as salacious as it sounds. It was just play a bunch of video games. But then they did suggest watching Humpfest, which is amateur porn made by Seattleites. So they did get there, sort of. And then they said a bunch of stuff like buy a sweater, order takeout from these restaurants. So I was like, okay, that's obviously not the best of what's out there. So I was looking around at other places online, and yeah, I found a pretty good website that was like, you should meditate, you should take a walk outside, you should make a donation. Those are some good ideas. But like, wherever you look, you're not gonna find this progressive vision of you're an eternal soul that has an enduring self, an inner self that through the struggle is getting stronger. Because, yeah, secularism doesn't believe in eternity. It's what it comes down to. And actually, the CDC in a way kind of agreed with me. And I thought the CDC's was actually the best advice of anything that I found, which kind of makes sense because obviously that's going to be like the best of conventional thinking is we're going to show up on this CDC, right? So they had a lot of the same kind of stuff where it was like, see a counselor, yes. Get sleep, yes. Exercise, eat healthy, avoid alcohol. Hard, but yes. But then they said, connect with your community or faith-based organizations. They know. The CDC knows that there's only so far that just conventional wisdom can take you, that at a certain point, secularism can't make meaning out of suffering. And if you need that, you need some religious folks. So I say, amen, CDC, send them over to the faith-based orgs and send them over to Jesus, because Jesus knows how to turn suffering into meaning. That's what he does. And yeah, that's been happening for me. And I was thinking back over this year, and I know a lot of you guys probably remember this, but I had a very spiritual experience with a rainbow right before COVID hit. We went on our retreat, and we were asking this question, like, what needs to die so that new things can grow in? And as we went out to ask it, there was this huge rainbow. While I was walking towards the rainbow, I was like, God, what needs to die so that new stuff can grow in? And he was like, your criticism, the way that you're always hating yourself, and the way that you're always worried that we're not multiplying and starting new house churches fast enough, and the way you're always stressed out about whether you're successful or not. Like, just shut up about all that stuff, because you are walking towards heaven. Like, you are becoming this more beautiful being. And while I was walking towards the rainbow, I heard for the first time, not the first time, but I felt very deeply in a way that I hadn't maybe ever before. I don't know, maybe I had. I just heard God say, like, I'm proud of you. Actually, I don't think I had really believed that before. Like, I'm proud of who you're becoming. And yeah, it felt like all these little investments that I'm making every time I invite somebody to this church, or just all the little sacrifices that I'm making for church, they're these little steps that I'm taking towards heaven. And I'm becoming a more beautiful person. And I think I needed that before we headed into COVID. Because, yeah, here we are almost a year later, 9 months later, and our church is maybe 50% as big as it was before, and I care about it about half as much as I did then. Like, I'm okay. And I think a lot of it is just regularly in prayer. Honestly, I keep going back to that vision and seeing it again of that rainbow, and just remembering that I'm on this, like, it's not the task at hand, it's who I'm becoming. It's not the task at hand. It's who we're becoming through this. It's not the suffering of the moment or this year. This year isn't a waste. It's who we're becoming, right? Yeah. To an outsider, to a secular person, a Seattleite, like, this is a waste of a year. This is a shrinking church. When I talk to God, no. I'm becoming who he wants me to be, and that's all I need. This year and the suffering in it is just a little step on this long walk towards heaven. Yeah. In a second, we're going to have some silence and reflection as we do. And yeah, as we do that, if you feel like you don't have a vision for who you're becoming, for the inner self that gets stronger as the struggling increases, ask God for that. He can give you that. If you want to come over and play, I got one last thing to read. This is Paul crushing it. So in 2 Corinthians 4:6, Paul says, God, who said, let light shine out of darkness, made his light shine in our hearts to give us the light of the knowledge of God's glory displayed in the face of Christ. That's a lot. But we have this treasure in jars of clay to show that this all-surpassing power is from God and not from us. We are hard-pressed on every side, but not crushed, perplexed, but not in despair, persecuted, but not abandoned, struck down, but not destroyed. We always carry around in our body the death of Jesus, so that the life of Jesus may also be revealed in our body. For we who are alive are always being given over to death for Jesus' sake, so that this life may also be revealed in our mortal body. So then, death is at work in us, but life is at work in you. It is written, I believed, therefore I have spoken. Since we have the same spirit of faith, we also believe and therefore speak, because we know that the one who raised the Lord Jesus from the dead will also raise us with Jesus and present us with you to himself. All this is for your benefit, so that the grace that is reaching more and more people may cause thanksgiving to overflow to the glory of God. Therefore, we do not lose heart. Though outwardly we are wasting away, yet inwardly we are being renewed day by day. For our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. So we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but on what is unseen, since what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal. God, that's good. Thank you. Yeah, Jesus, if anybody thinks that this year is a waste, I pray you'd speak to them right now. Yeah, we're gonna look back, and this is gonna be one of the most important years for us. And yeah, we accept this year of spiritual pruning. about the vision that you have for them, who you want them to become. Yeah, what are the next steps, Jesus? What are the next steps in our discipleship, God? Holy Spirit, come. Please speak, Jesus. Yeah, it might be a good idea to be open to God speaking to you through your imagination. Yeah, He might want to give you some picture to hold on to, especially if you've been feeling. Yeah, if you've been feeling like it's a waste, this year is not a waste. I feel like God's saying that we got to be ready to help people put the puzzle pieces together, because a lot of people are going to be confused after this year. But yeah, God's got this view that sees where everything goes, and that He's going to empower us as His people to help people with that. Yeah. Amen, you guys. We are now going to break up into groups of 3 to talk about what are you thinking about, feeling, or what was the other one? Thinking about, feeling.